So today, we're going to dive into a modern playbook for power, one that really seems to defy all the old rules. We're going to break down how one nation is basically rewriting the book on geopolitics by mastering contradiction and, well, operating in the shadows.
Okay, let's start with a puzzle, one that has a lot of people scratching their heads. You've got Turkey, a key member of NATO for, over 70 years now? And they go and buy the S-400, which is this super sophisticated Russian missile defense system. And as you can imagine, this move made its Western allies pretty furious.
But you know, this wasn't just about buying some military hardware. It was a massive geopolitical signal. It was a signal that seems to completely contradict Turkey's entire history as this solid bulwark for the West, this reliable partner on the front lines.
So you have to ask, right? How can a country be a loyal partner and, at the exact same time, a disruptive actor? Well, the answer isn't that they're confused or inconsistent. Nope, it's a deliberate, very calculated strategy. Okay, let's really get into the core concept here. All these actions that look like contradictions, they're actually all part of a really refined and powerful doctrine, a doctrine that's all about weaponizing uncertainty. Now, what's so fascinating here is how this whole idea reframes contradiction. It's not a weakness, it's not a sign of being indecisive. In this playbook, contradiction is the weapon. It's the tool you use to create wiggle room for yourself on the world stage.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? This strategy lets Turkey play multiple sides at the same time. It gives them plausible deniability for their actions and helps them turn the old constraints of alliances into brand new opportunities to project power.
So who's the engine driving this whole complex strategy? To get that, we've got to look behind the curtain at the shadow architects who are actually drawing up these plays.
The source material points right at Turkey's National Intelligence Organization, the MIT, as the central coordinator for this entire thing. It's not described as just another government agency, but as the central nervous system, something that directly connects the president's political goals with covert operational power.
So the big takeaway here is that the MIT isn't just sitting back and gathering intel. No way. It is actively running a hybrid warfare doctrine across multiple theaters around the globe, from coordinating secret military ops to managing these huge networks of proxy fighters.
Now, I know this all might sound a bit theoretical. So let's look at how this playbook is actually being used on the ground, where the strategy moves from theory into, a very harsh reality for the people involved.
This table gives us a fantastic snapshot of just how adaptable this strategy is. I mean, look at the contrast. In Syria, you see brute force, proxy militias, and drone strikes to get what they want. But then you look at Europe, and it's a much softer, almost more insidious kind of power play, using surveillance and influence ops to shape the story from the inside. And a huge piece of this modern playbook is Turkey's advanced drone technology, which they developed themselves. These drones allow for unbelievably precise strikes and constant surveillance, all while blurring the lines of who's really involved. It makes them the absolute perfect tool for a strategy based on ambiguity. So what's the big picture here? What does this shadow playbook really mean for the future of geopolitics?
Well, the core tension is this. Turkey is operating on two different layers at the same time. It uses its public alliances, like its seat at the NATO table, as a kind of shield for its autonomous and often totally contradictory covert actions. And look, this really matters, because Turkey's model might just be the blueprint for how other countries navigate a world where those old clear-cut loyalties are just fading away. It's a playbook for rising powers who want to carve out their own space in a world that isn't dominated by one superpower anymore, creating these gray zones where they can thrive. And all of this leaves us with one last, really provocative thought. In an age where trust between nations is so hard to come by, maybe the greatest power doesn't come from obvious strength, but from mastering the art of being dangerously unpredictable.